Welcome, everybody. I want to welcome you all to our small Zoom launch for our new book, The Crossed Out Guide in the Asia Pacific. I want to welcome all you who are viewing this video, but I also want to especially welcome the contributors to our book. I'll show you now the chapters here we have. We have Martin Slama writing on pilgrimage and representations of pilgrimage via social media. Dede Sharif writing about minority Islam and public Islam in Indonesia. Jason Davies Kilday writing about the characteristic split within the Salvation Army in Australia. We then have myself and Asep Saipul Muhtadi writing about Habermas and traditional Muslim reflexivity. Muhammad Fakhur Raji talking about how popular preachers in Indonesia have to be careful of the civil society organisations and their media reach. Shivani Gupta has talked about what it's like to be a woman working, travelling through the sacred city of Banaras. Matt Tomlinson has written about the demonstrations held by spiritualists in Canberra and the interesting conjunctions of public-private there. And for the epilogue for our book, we welcome a contribution by the Jakarta-based intellectual Ahmad Basso. And I want to especially welcome Matt, Dede, and Ahmad, who are here at the moment to talk about their contributions. If you're interested in the book, it's available through the Springer link. It's a publication by Palgrave Macmillan through Springer. You'll find it there. The hardcover is expensive, but the paperback is eminently affordable. I also want to quickly mention Vishal Daryanomel and Linny Sharon from Palgrave Macmillan, who have been fantastic in helping this book to come to fruition, and I'm really grateful for them. So let's go back to the cover. Look, I want to start by just briefly giving an overview of my framing of the book, which led to the book being published. And this was part of an Australian Research Council grant under the Future Fellowship category. And we held a number of meetings with participants in Australia and in Germany. My start was that I've done a lot of work with numerically massive Muslim populations in Indonesia, and I'm very aware from the scientific literature, of course, of the narrative of secularism. And of course, it's always a kind of interesting reflection from working within these large Muslim populations in Indonesia with that narrative. And one thing I'm really struck is that the narrative of secularism quite often takes shape in an argument that various practices and context for the certain practices seem to have lost their public value or relevance. And some of the really famous terms to describe this are disenchantment or the unmasking or the crossing out. These are some of the main terms that have been used in the literature. And what I was really struck by was the way that authors who use these terms tend to leave them be as irrevocable processes, when even the authors who use the terms, in fact, are really qualified and are really ambivalent about the narrative of secularism, but these terms are left as irrevocable processes. And this has left us with some problems, I think, that are really important in framing the kind of inquiries that our group has been conducting about public and private practice of religion in the Asia-Pacific region. So first, as a result of that sort of way that these processes are left as irrevocable, is that we're left with a vocabulary of concepts about religion in public life that really isn't able to accommodate religion without it being anachronistic or something embarrassing or something that can't belong in the present. And this is not my idea. This is, of course, something that's been written about quite widely. And secondly, what about those multitudes? If those processes are held to be irrevocable, those multitudes are held to be doing something that aren't they aware that these things have been crossed out or unmasked? There's an interesting reflection and implication for their dignity of those populations. And you don't have to dig very deep into the literature to see people really question the dignity of populations who live under those conditions. So in our meetings, we thought about tinkering with this situation, in particular by breaking a certain nexus between religion and public utility. So if authoritative accounts frame the problem as one about the public efficacy of religious forms, what about reframing it as the religious efficacy of public space. So it's a kind of reoriented perspective there. And this is what I propose in this introduction, that we look instead at religious actors and individuals making evaluations of public place as appropriate sites or inappropriate sites for religion. Now, I think reframing things in this way makes a big difference because, for one thing, what we avoid is this idea that religious groups and individuals are kind of labouring along unaware that their practices and their contexts have been crossed out. Instead, they are shown to be people who understand that they have public competencies and they can understand the public context in which they are and the various ways in which religion can interact there. So they don't appear as sort of deluded actors continuing to be unaware that their cosmologies have been crossed out. In fact, they're subjects able to negotiate public realities deftly and with full knowledge of the implications of the various spaces. So that's enough for my framing. I also make brief summaries of the chapters, and I talk about how they relate to that theme. But from now, I want to move on and ask my colleague Dedi Sharif, and ask would he perhaps give us some oversight of his chapter, which talks about the Shia emergence in Indonesia and what's at stake then for the emergence of the Shia group in terms of the publicness of their movement. Thanks, Dede.
Thank you, Julian. Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. My name is Dede Sarip. I am from Indonesia. Currently, I am a lecturer at the State Islamic University of Bandung. And my chapter, Minority Islam in Public Square, examine the transition of religious minority group, the Shia, from private identity to public identity. This Shia organization is attempting to achieve public acknowledgement for their identity through this identity change, including the legal identity from the state and the social recognition from the society. But however, these two recognition, the government and public recognition, are incompatible. So my study conclude that the public space is a kind of battleground for recognition, both from the state and from society. So the state cannot totally dominated the acknowledgement, the recognition. They also have to combine the recognition from the state as well. In my cases, the Shia minority group, they could gain the government recognition, but unfortunately, they cannot gain public recognition. So in my chapter, I show that the way how this minority emerged, they have to face to situation. The first one is the rejection from the Sunni conservative, but on the other hand, they got the state recognition. So the state recognition may be most important because they could protection from the government, and also they could get the legality so they can practice their faith. But in terms of social recognition, so they have to build it in maybe takes time because they have to interact with different social group. In this case, my chapter answered the question why Shia now become the target of violence in Indonesia, and the answer is because they emerge in the public space, which is they have to interact with other group. I think this issue is very important in terms that Indonesia is the diversity community, which is consists of many groups. Jadi penelitian ini bagi konteks Indonesia sangat penting, terutama bagi para peneliti Indonesia yang ada di luar, para Indonesianis dan juga yang ada di Indonesia untuk melihat satu isu terpenting yaitu bagaimana hubungan antara kelompok keagamaan yang itu diwujudkan bagaimana kehadiran mereka di ruang publik. Dan ruang publik itu adalah menjadi ruang bagi kelompok-kelompok agama untuk berkontestasi, memperebutkan legalitas mereka di hadapan masyarakat. Jadi ada dua, ada legalitas yang didapatkan atau pengakuan yang didapatkan dari negara dan juga pengakuan dari masyarakat. So that is my chapter. I hope this will contribute to the research on how the interreligious studies in Indonesia and elsewhere. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dede, from the UIN Sunan Gunung Jati, Bandung. I want to now ask Professor Matt Tomlinson from the ANU. Matt, would you give us, please, an overview of your chapter, your contribution?
Yeah, thanks, Julian. I really enjoyed participating in this volume because the questions of public and private are kind of endlessly generative in studying religion. And for this chapter, I kind of wanted to approach it from a different angle than usual. I really wanted to look at the work that understandings of privacy and the revelation of privacy can do in religious ritual. So in Australia, where I live and work, and in the United States, where I grew up, as many scholars have written about the kind of privatization of death, the idea that processes of dying and then treating the dead are largely treated as family matters, not really matters of too open discussion. And of course, there's exceptions to that in sensationalist journalism and all sorts of corners of society. But in general, in a place like Australia or New Jersey, where I grew up, you don't usually speak that openly about processes of death or how loved ones died. So I wanted to look at the ways and times people do speak about death and manners of death, because my recent ethnographic research has been with spirit mediums in Canberra. And the spirit mediums with whom I work are members of a religious movement called spiritualism. And many people are familiar with the imagery of spiritualism because it was very big, Victorian era parlor seances and all that. But it still very much exists as a religious movement today and has many followers, especially in the US, UK, Australia, and elsewhere. To get to the essence of my chapter, when spirit mediums do their work in a spiritualist service, it's a public event. The public is invited. It's free to attend. Anyone can walk in those doors. And what the medium's job is to do is to tell you in the audience about your late loved ones. So, for example, they should be able to describe what your late great-grandmother was like, should be able to describe her personality, her characteristics, and all that. But a key thing that many mediums do is they'll also describe how she passed away. Oh, I have a pain in my chest. She passed from a heart attack. Oh, I'm having trouble breathing. She may have had emphysema. Some mediums do more of this and some do less. But this is the grist for the mill of my chapter, is to look how this is a religious movement in which talking about what's normally considered private, processes of dying, and also details of a person's life that wouldn't be generally known, is the very stuff of effective ritual. A medium really does her job well, and I say her because most mediums are women. A medium really does her job well when she reveals the private in a public space, but this is considered good. For the performance context, this is an appropriate and effective revelation of privacy that shows the medium is doing a good job. So that's what my chapter is about, and I'm really happy to be part of this volume. Thanks, Julian.
Thank you very much, Matt, for that overview and also for your fantastic, marvelous chapter. Now, I noticed we had Fakhrul Roji there.
Well, I think the book is very important for those who are studying about Islam, especially in the context of public Islam in the Asia Pacific, because the book contains a multitude of public contexts and cases that are relevant to Islam in the Asia Pacific. including Indonesia for sure. Specifically about my chapter, my chapter in the book is talking about a case in Indonesia, which is which has happened in 2018. The case exemplifies how public Islam in Indonesia can be debatable and may even result in blasphemy lawsuits. The case itself is happened to Effie Effendi, Ustad Effie Effendi, a popular, trendy, and millennial pop preacher who was criticized for misinterpreting Quranic verse that went viral on social media. I feel so grateful for this opportunity to collaborate on this project. So I would like to thank especially I would like to thank to Professor Julian Milley from Monash University, Australia, and all of the co-authors in the book who worked together for this book to happen. So I think I extremely believe that this book will be a crucial reference for Islamic studies in the Asia Pacific region and beyond. So congratulations for the book. Thank you.
So I want to ask Ahmad Basso, who is one of maybe Indonesia's foremost intellectual on the public and private politics of Islam in Indonesia. Terima kasih ya Pak Ahmad for your epilogue. It's a marvelous piece of work that really finishes off the book beautifully, and kami persilakan. Please.
Thanks Pak Julian for introduction. Saya bicara dalam bahasa Indonesia saja. Saya ingin mengungkapkan, nama saya Ahmad Basso, sehari-hari bekerja sebagai penulis dan peneliti di PBNU, kemudian di beberapa perguruan tinggi yang di Adeta maupun di luar Jakarta. Saya tidak terikat dengan satu lembaga, jadi saya kemana-mana gini. Jadi sekarang saya mengenangani satu lembaga terkait dengan studi dan kajian manuskrip Islam Nusantara, madrasah online, kajian manuskrip Islam Nusantara, online madrasah on the study of Islamic manuscripts of Nusantara. Sekarang saya di situ. Pertanyaan yang mencuat diskusi dengan Pak Julian dalam chapter yang bagian epilog itu adalah apakah ada kontribusi bagi agama dalam public sphere atau ruang publik yang terbuka, yang humanis dan demokrat. Apakah ada unsur agama dalam perbincangan tentang ruang publik di ranah Indonesia yang dominan seperti yang digeluti oleh para ulama Nahdlatul Ulama, satu ormas terbesar di Indonesia dan juga di dunia? Pertanyaan ini kami jawab dalam diskusi dengan Pak Julian dan ternyata sangat kaya karena pertanyaan ini kami jawab dengan melihat satu perspektif tentang peran itu sendiri, apakah dia bermain dalam konteks seperti yang dimainkan oleh para ulama di negara lain seperti Islamisasi. Ruang publik itu harus diislamisasi, harus diislamkan. Ataukah ada cara lain yang di luar, yang berbeda dengan cara ulama-ulama yang di Timur Tengah misalnya. Nah, saya tunjukkan dalam chapter ini bahwa ulama Indonesia itu dia bermain dalam konteks ruang publik itu ada pada dua level. Satu pada level ruang publik yang terbuka, satu pada level ruang publik yang tertutup atau open public sphere, dan yang kedua adalah closed public sphere, ruang publik yang tertutup. Pada ruang publik yang tertutup, para ulama Indonesia tidak pernah menggunakan istilah Islamisasi, tidak pernah menggunakan istilah mensyariahkan negara atau syariatization of state, nggak pernah. Yang dipakai adalah integrasi. pengidentifikasian negara ini dengan negara yang berbasis nasional, Nusantara atau Jawi dalam bahasa dulu para ulama dulu. Tidak pernah mengangkat istilah state, tidak pernah ada. Tidak pernah juga istilah Daulah Islamiyah yang dipakai oleh para ulama di negara-negara Islam, tapi menggunakan negara nasional. Menggunakan istilah yang dipakai oleh founding fathers, oleh para pendiri republik ini. Maka mereka ikut di sana menjadi bagian dari perumus konstitusi, perumus dasar negara, Pancasila, Undang-Undang 45. Tapi tidak pernah satupun menyatakan negara ini adalah negara Indonesia. Nah ini peran ulama dalam ruang publik yang terbuka. Artinya ada integrasi. Mau mengembangkan nilai-nilai keislaman, maka perspektifnya adalah integrasi ke dalam sistem nasional. Yang basisnya adalah keadilan. Yang basisnya adalah penghargaan terhadap hak-hak publik, demokrasi, hak asasi manusia, dan seterusnya. Baru kemudian Islam akan jalan di situ melalui integrasi nilai-nilai yang ada dalam ajaran agama sehingga bisa hidup di dalam ruang publik dalam sistem apakah itu dalam politik, dalam undang-undang dan seterusnya. Nah, ini peran Islam dalam ruang publik yang terbuka. Adapun yang terkait dengan ruang publik yang tertutup, para ulama mengembangkan misalnya pendidikan yang berpesantren, berbasis masjid atau lembaga-lembaga tradisional yang memberikan semacam penguatan-penguatan kepada kader anak bangsa ini. Seperti halnya sekolah-sekolah yang ada sekolah Katolik, ada sekolah Protestan, ada sekolah Islam, dan seterusnya. Tapi orientasi pendidikan tersebut bukan menciptakan enklav-enklav seperti yang ada dalam lembaga pendidikan keagamaan yang nantinya kadernya akan membangun enklav-enklav yang eksklusif, bukan gitu. Tapi ingin ditujukan kepada sebuah penguatan sistem norma yang satu berorientasi pada penguatan komunitas, communal orientation dalam lingkup Nahdlatul Ulama. Tapi ada satu lagi penguatan orientasi sifatnya terbuka secara nasional. Jadi kami punya istilah yang disebut dengan Islam Nusantara. Nah ini, jadi diskusi tentang chapter ini akan menarik kalau pada ruang yang lebih luas tentang paradigma keislaman Indonesia yang belah Nusantara, keindonesiaan, Indonesian Islam. Disitulah kemudian kita hadir kontribusi memberikan masukan dalam kita tentang private dan yang publik, bahwa ternyata tidak ada dikotomi, tidak ada ketegangan, tapi yang justru terjadi adalah menyiasati satu ruang publik itu harus kita integrasi ke dalam secara nasional, karena memang orientasi keislaman Indonesia adalah orientasi ke nasional juga. Maka yang kedua, kalau ingin membawa syariat, membawa ajaran keagamaan, maka harus pertama-tama difilter, disaring di dalam konteks ruang pendidikan tadi, yang close public sphere itu. Jadi disitulah kita bergumul dalam pesantren, dalam perguruan tinggi, dalam berbagai institusi-institusi atau lembaga-lembaga pendidikan, bahwa keislaman kita itu harus berbasis yang Nusantara, bukan yang berbasis kepada Darul Islam. Bukan. Jadi Darul Islam itu hanya yang ada di masa lalu, tapi kemudian diinterpretasikan kembali, misalnya oleh para pembawa Islam Wali Songo, menjadi Darussalam. Jadi ini menarik diskusinya kalau kita bicara di chapter ini dalam konteks kita sebagai Darussalam atau the abode of peace, the house of peace. Jadi Indonesia as a house of peace. Jadi not a house of Islam. Nah ini, jadi inilah bedanya. Jadi banyak hal yang akan kita ungkap nanti dari chapter ini, meskipun sangat terbatas, tapi perspektif memberikan sebuah kontribusi bagi diskusi-diskusi yang lebih serius. Bukan cuma kita mereview kembali tesisnya Habermas public spare. Dan itu memang poin kita di situ ya Pak Julian. Kita perlu mereview relevansi tesis Habermas dalam konteks Islam Indonesia. Tapi yang lebih besar lagi dari itu adalah membuka luas wawasan kita bahwa Islam Indonesia ini adalah sebagai buah paradigma sosial dan paradigma politik yang akan memberi banyak hal kontribusi yang positif bagi penguatan-penguatan keterlibatan agama, kalangan agama, dan agama dalam ruang publik yang lebih sehat, yang lebih mengedepankan kepada public good, dan seterusnya sesuai dengan cita-cita founding fathers tentang Indonesia ini. Saya kira gitu. Terima kasih.
Thank you very much, Ahmad Bassel, for that contribution and for your terrific epilogue. And I encourage people out there, if you're interested in these issues and you're interested in some quality case studies, please have a look at the book. And I want to thank once again all the contributors, especially those who have gathered today to give an overview. Thanks a lot, guys, and I look forward to working with you all again in the near future. Thanks.